Hello, I'm Neal from the Garrett Public Library for this week's installment of Railroader Reading. Hopefully, you've kept warm and comfy this past week, preparing to send those cards out to your special Valentines. I have selected a book on human event that gave us all thrills and chills, no matter what our age. Rocket Men by Craig Nelson, a true account of the space and missile race, and ending on the exhilarating first men on the moon. Of course, I'll try not to get too bogged down and do some excerpts to recall a few momentous memories. First chapter, Behemoth. On May 20th, 1969, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, a 363-foot, 30-story high black and white Saturn V rocket known as AS-506 was painstakingly trundled 5 miles across the raging heat and searing green of Central Florida's eastern coast by an 11-man Kennedy Space Center crew aboard the world's largest land vehicle, a 6 million pound tank-wheeled crawler out of NASA's Vehicle Assembly Building, itself a 129 million cubic foot edifice so massive that its steel accordion doors were 45 stories high, and without its 10,000-ton air conditioner, interior clouds would form under its 525 high ceiling, and it would rain. An enormous creation of white chip and red derrick. The rocket and its mated launch tower, a 12 million pound engineering and technological Goliath, moved so slowly from where they had been assembled to their destination that progress could not be tracked by human eye. Instead, they would be noted at one point and then, a few hours later, at another. The sight accompanied by a small shock, the shock of a great red, white, and black skyscraper coming to life and advancing imperceptibly across the Florida sawgrass swampland. The crawler at the rocket's base was, in itself, such a dramatic piece of engineering legerdemain that it even impressed Kennedy Launch Operations Director and former West Point tackle Rocco Petrone. Somebody in our shop came up with the idea of using giant tracked machines like those used in strip mining. What evolved was the unique crawler, or, more politely, transporter. As built by Ohio's Marion Power Shovel Company, the crawler took shape with 8 tracks, each 7 by 41 feet, with cleats like a Sherman tank, except that each cleat weighed a ton. Mounted over these 8 tracks was the platform, bigger than a baseball diamond, on which the Apollo Saturn V and its mobile launcher would ride majestically from VAB to pad at 1 mile per hour. The package weighed 9,000 tons, 2/3 cargo, 1/3 crawler. At this point, I want to skip ahead beyond all the painstaking detail that had to go into the launch, flight, trajectory, and orbit for the crew, and get right to the moon. Excerpt from The Eagle Has Wings. At 1:47 p.m. Central Standard Time on July 20th, during the 13th revolution of the moon, Collins fired explosive that separated his Columbia from Armstrong and Aldrin's Eagle. Armstrong then swiveled the LM around so that Collins could confirm, through the windows, that its rockets had fired and its legs had telescoped correctly. At the same time, Aldrin and Armstrong could see, for the first time during the flight, their mothership's polished mirror skin and its black nozzle tail. This procedure took place on the lunar far side, meaning everyone back home on the ground had to wait once again for AOS to know if the maneuver had been a success, or if the mission would now be aborted. Capcom Charlie Duke repeatedly murmured into his headset, "Eagle, Houston, we're standing by. Eagle, Houston, we're standing by." Finally, there came a response. Armstrong. The Eagle has wings. The whole of Mission Control seemed to take a giant breath, like one living creature. There was a pause, and then shouts of congratulations and whoops of success. Collins to Armstrong. You've got a fine-looking flying machine there, Eagle, despite the fact you're upside down. Armstrong. Somebody's upside down. Collins. Okay, Eagle. You guys take care. Armstrong. See you later. Armstrong's mother, Viola. The tense period of the separation of the LM from Columbia, when Buzz and Neal left Mike, really pulled on my heartstrings. We felt sorry for him because he was alone and could not go along with the other two. We were so proud of him because he was so faithful. Though a mere 60 miles from the Sea of Tranquility, Michael Collins would be one of the few human beings unable to witness history's first moon landing. Joan Aldrin said to a guest in her home, "It's like a dramatic television show, but it seems unreal. There are just no words. Don't you agree?" What no one realized at that moment, not any of the crew nor anyone on the ground, was that a tiny puff of air in the separation procedure pushed Columbia and Eagle farther and faster apart than NASA had calculated. We didn't know this until after the mission, but the crew had not fully depressed the tunnel between the two spacecrafts. Gene Kranz said they should have gone down to a vacuum in there, and they weren't. So when they blew the bolts, when they released the latches between the spacecraft, there was a little residual air in there, sort of like popping a cork on a bottle. It gave us velocity separating these two spacecrafts. This tiny puff of unvented air added incrementally to Eagle's speed, throwing NASA's carefully considered landing plan into disarray. Instead of a computer-controlled touchdown, Armstrong would have to land on the moon himself, and there were other problems with the process, many that would not be fully understood until it was too late. On Apollo 11, we wound up 5 miles off target because of the navigation errors coming around the moon, and we didn't mathematically model the moon all that well. Mission Planning and Analysis Division Chief Floyd Bennett said, and there was some, we've assumed it to be homogeneous gravity, and it wasn't. It had what they call mass concentration, or mass cons. So that caused us to be off when we started in the descent. And subsequently, we were off at the landing. Armstrong wound up over a boulder field. From the chapter, One of Those Sad Days When You Lose a Machine, July 20th, 1969, 3:17 p.m. Central Standard Time. Armstrong, engine arm is off. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. In NASA history, filled with so many great moments, this was the greatest of them all. The only thing that was out of normal throughout this entire process that we had never seen in training was the people behind me in the viewing room start cheering and clapping, and they're stomping their feet. Gene Kranz remembered, and our instructors are over in the room to the right of the room, again behind a glass wall, and they're all cheering, and you get this weird feeling. It's chilling that it soaks in through the room, and I get it, and say, my God, we're actually on the moon. And I can't even relish that thought because I got to get back to work. Because we have to make sure, almost instantaneously, whether the spacecraft is safe to leave on the surface of the moon, or should we immediately lift off. We go through what we call our T1 stay, no, stay decisions. So that within 60 seconds of getting on the moon, I have to tell the crew, it's safe to stay on the moon for about the next 8 minutes. And I don't have any voice. I'm clanked up. I was so hung up by this cheering coming in from the lunar room that I could not speak, and pure frustration, because I had to get going on the stay, no stay. I just wrapped my arm down on the console there, just absolutely frustrated. I broke my pencil, The pencil flies up in the air. Charlie Duke's next to me, and he's looking and wondering what the hell has happened here. And finally, I wrap my arm on the console and break my pen. And I finally get going, get back on track again, and in a very cracked voice say, "Okay, all flight controllers, stand by for T1 stay, no stay." Finally, Capcom Duke was able to reply, "Roger, Tuan, tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You've got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. Be advised, there are lots of smiling faces in this room and all over the world." Later, Duke would remember. "We were so excited, I couldn't even pronounce tranquility. It came out twanquility." "Aldrin, there are two of them up here. Collins. And don't forget one in the command module. You guys did a fantastic job." Walter Cronkite, while pulling off his glasses to mop the sweat from his forehead. "Phew. Wow, boy. Man on the moon." Aldrin and Armstrong, their faces grizzled with 4 days of stubble, looked at each other, grinned, shook hands, and clapped each other's shoulders. "So far, so good," said Armstrong. "Let's get on with it." To Houston, he announced, "Okay, we're going to be busy for a minute." From the chapter, "Mr. President, the Eagle has landed." Jan Armstrong to her husband on television, "Be descriptive." July 20th, 1969, 9:56 p.m. Central Standard Time. With 600 million people, 1/5 the Earth's population, watching or listening, Armstrong's foot touched the ground of another world for the first time in human history. And he said, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Actually, the step was not so small. Armstrong had set down Eagle so gently that the leg's shock absorbers did not compress and deploy, leaving the ladder's last rung 3.5 feet above the surface. Before actually making the historic step, Armstrong dropped from the rung to Eagle's footpad, and then jerked himself back onto the ladder to make sure that after the EVA, he and Aldrin would be able to climb back aboard their ship. He then warned Aldrin about what a long one, a 3-footer, the small step actually was. Aldrin, meanwhile, had to remember not to lock the cabin door after exiting Eagle, since the designers had neglected including a handle on the outside. One NASA executive commented that, with one small step, Armstrong surprised everybody. Yes or no, from him, is a big conversation. Back in Houston, Neal's brother, Dean, was so thrilled he could barely contain himself. Finally, he joked, when we ask him about it later, he'll say, "A piece of cake." Neal's 12-year-old son, Rick, however, corrected his uncle, saying of his dad, "Usually when you ask him something, he just doesn't answer." Well, everyone, take care of yourself to enjoy next week's reading. So long, until the next time we virtually meet.